In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to lead a school built around education for the individual. And I'm going to do it using a prop, which is my favorite chair. It's called a Capisco Hag. And I'm going to show you why I love it in just a second and how it's a great prop for this story. And I'm going to tell a few other stories as well, including one about Paulo Freire, how knowing your people is incredibly important. And I'm going to talk about a tool called the empathy map, which you may not have heard about either. I'll see you on the other side in just a second. So when it comes to personalized learning and how building education around the interests of an individual, this chair, a Capisco Hag, is a perfect example, because when I moved into this office here in Syracuse, New York, there were two things I knew I needed. One would be a standing desk, right? So I can stand up, sit down, move around as I needed. The second thing is I just wanted a beautiful chair. This chair I love for two reasons. One, it's green. And some folks that know me really well, one of my coaches too, Jared, he calls me the Peter Pan of coaching, right? You may not know me that way, and that's fine, but he likes my approach because it's playful, it's unique. I tap into the child within myself because that helps me stay curious and ask a lot of questions that other people may be too afraid to ask. And then the most important part when it comes to Peter Pan is the old imagination station. So I have the ability to dream and to think about things that some folks would never consider possible doing. And as a coach, that is an incredibly useful skill because it really pushes the envelope. It helps me stay on an edge as a leader and as a coach that I want to occupy, which has to do with being out of the box, being a ruckus maker. So this chair is beautiful. It's perfect for me. We saw me spin, so you could spin around. There's a handle here too that if you flip it, it makes it more bendy. So you wouldn't want to do that sitting normal because you'll fall right out of the chair. But if I flip it around this way, it allows me to move around. So I love sort of doing this kind of thing or rocking back and forth. As my standing desk goes up, this chair can go up too. So that's basically, what I want to show you regarding the chair. I'm somebody who fidgets a lot. I get up, I get down, I bounce around a room. As a student, I was one of those students who stood up at the back of the class because you couldn't keep me sitting down. I was always running around and I needed to move. So this chair is an image, right? It's a metaphor for what are you doing as a leader to tap into the personal interests of your staff. Because if you can leverage, if you can take action on what drives people, if you know them on that type of level, then anything is possible in education. So that's one part of leading a school built around education for the individual. Knowing that they're a fidgeter and getting furniture for students that they can move around the room and that kind of thing too. So that's all I have to say about my chair. What I want to talk about next has to do with a Brazilian educator, philosopher, and intellectual named Paulo Freire. So Freire is a Brazilian intellectual, philosopher, educator, and he had this idea that who is the expert in the room, right? Who has ownership in the room? And he wrote a book, probably, I want to say the 60s, but I could be totally wrong about when it first came out. The book I read as an undergrad, and it's called Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And so the point was this: a lot of teachers occupy a classroom thinking that they're a sage on the stage. And so they see their students almost as empty vessels, that if they could crack open their heads and just dump their vast amount of knowledge and experience and wisdom into their students, then the kids would be okay. This is called the banking model of education. And according to Freire, it was a bad thing. It's a no-no. What Freire asserted was a different approach. The pedagogy of the oppressed was about not using a banking model of education. It is how do we transfer the ownership of the classroom from the teacher to the students. So instead of me taking my experience, knowledge, and wisdom and depositing it in the kids, how do we create relevant lessons that are authentic to their experience, that solved interesting problems and gave them ownership. Because if you did that, you sparked that love of learning by showing kids it's not necessarily just what's in the books, but how you figure out problems in the neighborhood, then that was an act of liberation. It's an act of freedom. And back to the purpose of this video, you can lead a school more effectively when you tap into the interests of individuals. I used to do something called an interest inventory as a student, or excuse me, as a teacher. And I would ask my students, what do they need to feel interested and engaged and safe and all these different things within the classroom. Ask them about hobbies, ask them about their family, favorite foods, music. And I would specifically and intentionally tap into those interests through my lessons so that kids were more engaged. Now, almost all teachers know and use something like an inventory, but a weird thing happens when we get into our leadership role. We throw those things out the window. So what I am suggesting here is not only to use pedagogy of the oppressed sort of model as a classroom teacher. When you become a school leader, be just as excited about the passions, interests, hobbies, life outside of school of your faculty, because if you know them on that type of level, then anything is possible. And speaking of that, just want to reference that I did a video also on basically creating world-class cultures by using a bucket list or a dream list video. So we'll link that up for you in the notes under the video. That video basically says in 10 seconds, if you know the dreams, if you know the aspirations of your faculty and you help them achieve those things, then they will do anything for you. Zig Ziglar said that anything is possible. If you help people accomplish whatever it is that they want, then you can have whatever it is that you want. And so as a leader, I always remember that, because my job isn't just grow the podcast, grow this YouTube channel, serve more school leaders through the mastermind. My focus is actually having amazing conversations, getting to know the real human beings that I want to serve, and then helping them accomplish what it is that they dream about. And what I've found is if I do that, everything else takes care of itself. So that's all I want to say about the Freire model of education and also tapping into people's dreams. The last thing that I want to share is that it's really important to practice what you preach. So what I've talked about, whether that's pedagogy of the oppressed, whether it's finding chairs and things that really fit the needs of your people, whether it is tapping into people's dreams and aspirations, helping them become a reality, you absolutely must practice what you preach. This is emotional labor. It's not for those of the faint of heart. It's going to be hard work. And it's going to be at times messy too, because it's personal. It's not just professional. But the thing is this, if you're willing to go there with your people, form those relationships, show that you really care, then I'm telling you, there's nothing your school or organization can't achieve. If you want to see more personalized learning happening in your school, if you want to lead a school that is built around the education of the individual, then as a leader, where do I see that? You working with adults, because then those adults will do that with the students, and that becomes a win-win situation for all. So this is about personalized leading schools in a personalized way. And I know that my little darling here loves lamb and salmon treats, right? So good sit, good down. Here you go. Come here, Uncle. Sit. No. You have to sit. Good. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. And essentially, I'd also love to just hear, how are you making learning personalized for those you serve? So, hey, it's Danny, and thanks for enjoying this video. Until next time, go make a ruckus.